Hello, hello.
Hello. Good to
Welcome
see you.
back. Great to see you as always. Welcome back to Living Richly with Curo. This is episode 7. We're happy to have you. Today, we are going to be talking about our financial planning process. So, the process that we take clients through in Curo, the firm that Atrisa and I run together. But before we get into that, let's do a little A team catch up. So, Atrisa, what's new and exciting in your world?
Yeah, I don't know about exciting, but new, and stop me if this is TMI. But I recently had a I recently had a doctor's appointment, and I'm explaining to my doctor kind of some of the things I've been, experiencing, wanting her feedback on what she thinks. Her first sentence to me starts with, "Well, you're in your 40s now." So I was flabbergasted. I was like, "Wait, is she
Yeah.
calling me old? Am I old now?" Oh. So, of course, she's like, "You
Yeah.
should probably do some tests just to check some hormone levels." I'm like, "Oh my God." I was freaking out because I'm like, "Wait, am I now officially in the like old lady category?" But again, we
Yeah.
did the testing and everything came back fine and normal, which made me feel justified. Like, yeah, lady, I'm not that old. Like, I just turned 40. Calm down. But I just it was such an interesting dynamic because I always tell people that I feel like my age doesn't reflect how I feel necessarily. So it's
Yeah.
always like
Yeah.
an awakening for me when someone reminds me, like, oh, yeah, you're 40 in your 40s now. So these things are probably different. And I don't necessarily feel any different than I did when I was in high school from an emotional standpoint. Of course, it's my body, obviously. So anyway, that's what's new with me. But again, everything came back great. She couldn't categorize me in the old lady category yet, which made me feel really good.
Whoop, whoop.
So,
You're
uh,
only as old as you feel. Remember, we were talking about this on
yes.
our retirement webinar, right? The difference between age, which is your chronological age, and old, right? And,
Right.
we don't get old until we let ourselves get old. But I think for doctors, they're used to maybe dealing with people who may not take great care of themselves or may not be as young as we feel. So I get it. I get it from their standpoint, but yeah, don't you let your doctor make you feel
Yeah.
old because you're
No.
not there yet. I
No.
heard somebody refer to 40s as middle age the other day, and I was like, wait a minute, I am not. I am living past 80. Thank you very much. So you can take your middle age and stuff it.
You're
Not here.
right.
Not here.
Yeah, like don't try to age me so quickly. Give me a chance.
Yeah.
Give me a chance here. But yeah, so that's what's new with me. Anyway, not very exciting, but what's going on in your world?
PSA, go get those doctor's appointments scheduled.
Right, regular checkups and blood work and the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. Just to know that everything's fine. What is new with me? I'm just trying to survive the end of the school year. I feel
Mm,
like I keep thinking about the rubber balls versus glass balls analogy we
mhm.
talked about a few weeks ago,
Yeah,
and it is just intense. It's just so much getting everything done, and I feel like the school wants me to be there with the kids like every day, and I just obviously can't do that. So,
right.
I'm just trying to remember like I'll be there for the important things and everything will be fine and we'll get through this end of year crazy, which it always is every year, but I
Yeah, I'm
feel like
sure.
every year it's a struggle. Yeah. It shouldn't be surprising, but it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I forget how chaotic those last few weeks of school can be with the award ceremonies and the bridging ceremonies and the class parties and I'm sure they, expect moms to show up every day with cupcakes or something, but not all
Yeah.
moms have that
No, legit.
capacity,
I
and
showed up
that's fine.
today with cupcakes.
Did you?
Today was my cup. Yeah.
And I
Today was
didn't
my
even
cupcake
know
drop.
that.
So
I just made
I
that
know.
up.
I know you didn't know that, but I legitimately walked in 2 boxes of cupcakes today to school.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah.
Well, good luck. You'll handle it. You got what, like week and a half left?
We have like exact a week and a day.
A week and a day.
Tomorrow will be exactly a week. Yeah.
Almost there. You're at the
So
finish
we'll
line.
get through.
And then the
Yeah.
summer camp activities start, right?
Exactly, and then the summer crazy. There's something about the routine that I love about the school year. It goes by so
Mhm.
fast and it's really crazy for the kids, but there's something about, like, the consistency and the routine that I love,
Yeah,
and
I
then you
can
get into
understand that.
summer and it's like, this week is camp and this week is, we're doing a staycation and this week we're traveling, and so it's a little bit crazy, but it'll be fun. I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to the summer. And
yeah.
as a parent, we only have 18 summers with our kids, and I try to remind myself of
Mm,
that, especially for my middle schooler. 18 summers is all we get. Not a
yeah.
lot.
And then there will come a time when he won't wanna spend his summer with you.
Yes, I know. Exactly. So I'm just trying to make the most of it while I can.
Good. You'll survive.
So
Everybody will survive.
that's yeah. Yeah, we will get through it for sure. For sure. So, today, as we promised, we are going to talk about the process that we take financial planning clients through. And one of the things to share with all of you, if you're not familiar with our firm, is a few years ago, we actually instituted a rule where we will not take on what's called an investment only client. So, if a client has money that they want us to help us invest for them, which is very much part of what we do with clients, we require to do a financial plan first. So we believe very strongly in financial planning. And over the last number of years, we've really honed and refined the process that we take clients through. So that's what Atrisa and I wanted to share with you today, is what does that process look like? What are the different meetings and checkpoints, and what kinds of things are we talking about in each of those meetings? So why don't you kick us off, Atrisa, with the first step in our process, which is actually just a quick intro call?
Right. Yeah, our process starts with an intro call, which I like to think of as a quick little interview. And in that call, it's not just clients or prospects interviewing us as potential advisors. It's also us as advisors interviewing our potential clients. And I think what's important in that really quick 15-minute discussion is to make sure that expectations are clear about what clients can expect from us and also what we expect from our clients. And then to help detail what the process will look like. Because as you mentioned, we center planning here at our firm and in what we do. And it can be a really comprehensive, full process. And I think prospects need to understand that there's going to require some work on their part. They're going to have to also participate and provide the information we require. So that intro call gives us an opportunity to make sure that all expectations are set very clearly, that both parties are on the same page and both parties agree or at least understand it will look like going forward. So this is short 15-minute introductory call to make sure we're all just on the same page about what our process entails. And then
Yeah,
from that
absolutely. I think
process,
that's so important.
yeah, and then from that process, we move on to a follow up call because, of course, we want to give our prospects time to consider what we shared. So, Anne, I'll let you talk about those next steps.
Yeah, so on that introductory call, if we all agree that what we've shared makes sense and we'd like to take the next step in our process is we schedule a discovery session. And this is really a deeper dive into some of the things that we may have touched on high level during the intro call. This meeting generally lasts about an hour to an hour and a half because we really do dive deep into people's past experiences, both with advisors as well as with money, because money can come with a lot of different emotions and memories attached to it. So we really try to understand how people show up today and what their relationship is with money today by understanding what may have happened in the past. And likewise, we always love if this person or this couple has worked with an advisor before, we love to understand what worked really well in that relationship and what didn't work. Because if they're showing up in our office, something is probably not working. That's why they're
Right.
potentially interviewing someone else. And, in some cases, their advisor may have retired or unfortunately may have passed away. But in more cases than not, they are actively making a decision that that is not a good fit for them anymore and they would like to make a switch. So we really like to understand the why. And to your point, Atrisa, that does go back to expectations. Because if someone is sharing with us a reason that they're no longer going to do business with their existing advisor, and it's something that would continue with us, then we want to be able to upfront share that just in
Right.
terms of transparency during that discovery session. So we talk a lot about past experiences, about expectations, about what would make this relationship fruitful and successful. And then we talk about goals and, vision people have for their lives, what would they like to be able to accomplish. And then we do a little bit of the numbers talk. So the majority of the discovery session is really honing in on what we call the whys of life, what really matters.
Mhm.
And then we do spend a little bit of time understanding what we call the how, which is the money, right? The money funds the whys of our life, but it is a tool, it is a means to an end. So, yes, we need to talk about that to understand how the money is funding the goals, but we really focus a lot more on those goals and what's on your bucket list and what's important to you. And then by the end of that meeting, we also share what we do in our practice, which is comprehensive financial planning and proactive investment management. We discuss the costs that would be associated with that. By that point in the meeting, we have a better sense of complexity of the client situation and what we think we will be spending from a time standpoint. So we'll be able to quote an actual cost for what it would look like to work with us. And we think that's important information for
Yes,
folks to have
absolutely.
prior to making the decision. But one of the things we don't do in that meeting, which I think is unique, is we don't make any sort of decisions or commitments in that meeting. What we want is for the client or the prospective client or the couple, whatever the case may be, to go home and discuss our conversation and reflect on it, or just kind of noodle what we talked about, sleep on it, see how they're feeling. And then we also go back as a team and we talk about that prospective client situation. We want to make sure we all feel really good about working with him or her or them, and that we really feel confident we can add a lot of value. And then we'll come back together for what we call a decision call. So, Teresa, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, we usually like to schedule the decision call about a week out from the discovery session because, of course, that 90-minute session included a lot of conversation. As Ann mentioned, we talk about goals and what matters and even some of the money stuff. So we think that it's something that we want our prospective clients to deliberate very seriously to decide if they are on the same page as us as far as moving forward in the process. So we allow about a week or so for you to ruminate and make those decisions. I mean, in the really good times, the client will reach out to us first and say, "Hey, I don't need to wait another few days. I know I'm ready to go." And I love those times because then you know the client is super excited and ready to really push forward and get started. But we will schedule that call. It's just a quick call again. We'll, reconfirm pricing and the process of how setting up the planning agreement and paying the invoices and those sorts of things. But we really want the client to be able to make a well thought out decision about starting the planning engagement with us. So it's really just a quick call for the client to say, yes, I'm excited. Let's move forward. Or to say, maybe, but not right now, or to say, you know what, I just don't think, Curo is a good fit for us, which is also a very fair, decision for clients to make or prospective clients.
Right, exactly. Or if likewise we don't feel on the Curo side like it would be
Right.
a good fit, or some of the expectations we may not be able to fulfill, then we want to go in very honestly and transparently from the beginning and say, you know what, we don't think this is a good fit. There are so many other advisors out there. Please continue to search because we don't think that we're the right fit for you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think what's refreshing for me, having been in the industry for a long time and having worked at firms where there was like this really hard sell expectation, like you gotta strike while the iron's hot and you gotta close these people when they're in the meeting, that really always felt super inauthentic to me, because I'm like, if we're planning to have long-term relationships with these folks, what is the rush? Now, in some cases,
Right.
people do have quick, decisions that they need to make, and we can speed up our process if need be. But for the most part, no one is dying here, right? So if it takes another week for us to make a decision about whether or not we're working together, that feels so much more authentic to me. And oftentimes we really try to put ourselves in our client's shoes or our prospective client's shoes. And that feels really authentic to us. Like, let's all take some time, let's reflect, let's think about it. And if we all feel really good, then we believe that a long term relationship will be successful and fruitful for all parties involved. And there's no
Right.
reason to have to rush or feel, manipulated into making that decision quickly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to share. You never want to feel like you're pressuring a prospective client or even the clients we work with every day, just on their everyday decisions. You never want to feel like you're imposing or pressuring them into the decision, because I do think that there are some clients who will agree in the moment because they feel that sense of pressure, and then later on go back and say, "Oh, well, I should have asked this or I should have bought this." And then they approach the experience with some doubt still lingering in the back of their minds. So I think allowing the time for both parties to consider means that everyone shows up ready to move forward in, in the plan or in the way process that we recommend.
Right, exactly. It makes people more committed to the entire process
Right.
than if they feel like forced in and they've got that remorse that they rushed into something that they really shouldn't have, maybe.
Right. Okay. So after a
Yeah.
client says,
So,
"Yes, and I'm ready," what comes next?
yes. Exactly. So we're doing some things behind the scenes first. So we are completing our engagement paperwork, as Teresa mentioned. We're taking care of our invoicing. We're sending you a list of documents that we need. This is where your part really comes in. Like Teresa mentioned, we do need actual statements, and we gather tax returns and pay stubs, and good data in equals good data out. So we really want to make sure that we're getting a comprehensive set of all of your documents and all of your information. In addition, we have some questionnaires that we have clients complete that really give us more of a sense of those goals, what's keeping you up at night, what some of your bucket list items are, what's really important to you, what's important to you when you think about your legacy, those kinds of things. So we're gathering all that behind the scenes. Once we get all of those documents back from a client, it takes us about 2 weeks to really work on a draft plan. Then the next meeting that we have, which is our fourth step in the process, we call our strategy session. And I don't know about you, Teresa, but I think these meetings are so much fun because we go through a draft of your plan. We actually put it up on the monitor. If we're doing a Zoom, we're sharing our screen. If you're here in our office, we're sharing, on our computer screen or on
Hmm.
our TV screen. We're looking at a draft of your plan. We're starting to look through projections, but it is a very collaborative process. So we have a tool inside of our financial planning software that we use called a decision center. We pull up that decision center and we will have put some ideas and scenarios into that decision center for you. For example, if you want to retire at age 62, but let's say you want to work part time, maybe do some consulting for a few years for half of the salary that you're making now, what would that look like? Or if you were to downsize your home, what would that look like? Or buy a vacation property. So there's all these things that you've already shared with us that you have told us are important to you that we can pre-populate. But then you can also live in that meeting say, well, what if this or what if that? And we can actually show you in real time how it impacts your probability of success and your plan. So that meeting is a solid hour and a half to 2 hours. Usually if
Yes.
we start seeing people's eyes glaze over, that's when we're like, okay, let's stop. Let's stop and pick back up next meeting. But that's really fun. And that's where I think we're adding a lot of value from Go, is where people can
Hmm.
actually see very clearly how some of these financial decisions they're considering could impact their probability of success.
Yeah, it's I call it the light bulb moment meeting, because
Yeah.
for many clients, especially if they've never done comprehensive planning before, it's the first time they see their entire financial picture sort of laid out, demonstrated, illustrated for them in real time. And most times the light bulbs are really positive light bulbs, like, "Oh, I didn't realize that our net worth was that high," or, "Oh, looks like we have a really good probability of being able to retire at 62 versus 67." And then there also can be some light bulbs where it's like, "Oh God, I didn't realize I was spending that much." But I call it that sort of light bulb coming on meeting. And you're right. I think that's exactly where we start adding value, because I think just the simple process of laying it out for clients to see it in front of them with graphs and charts and wrapping science around the things that they've been mostly thinking about theoretically can be so empowering in that strategy session. But yeah, we typically need 90 minutes to go through all of it.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the pieces of feedback we get from clients after going through this process is they feel when they start the process with us, they feel a little bit discombobulated and
Mm.
disorganized and like they have stuff everywhere. They have got 401k plans and 4 different organizations from old jobs, which is very normal. We see this all the
Yes.
time. But after we, to your point, Atrisa, after we have everything on one screen where you can see your entire financial position, even if you've got assets at lots of different institutions, that just makes you and enables you to feel more calm, more organized, and you've got clarity. And that's really where we want to start, is from a position of feeling organized and having clarity. We don't want to make big financial decisions while we're feeling discombobulated and
Right.
disorganized. We want to go into those big decisions with clarity, because if we don't have clarity, how are we really making educated, well thought out decisions? We're not. So that's really the first step, is let's get you organized. Let's get everything on one screen. And then we can make decisions and help you make decisions and move forward from that peace and clarity.
Yes.
So that's really powerful. So once we get through
Absolutely.
strategy, take us through our next meeting, which is our implementation session.
Yeah, so typically in the implementation is where we will start drilling down into specific recommendations. So, because we are a firm that will do planning without investment management, but not the other way around, as Ann already shared, we won't do investments without planning. There are some clients who we are not managing the investments for them. So the implementation session is really going through the planning recommendations we've made. Should they increase the contribution to their 401k as an example, or should they change the way the 401k is invested? Should they add extra payments to the mortgage? So it's about going through those planning recommendations and really setting them up for success for actually getting them done. I say we're creating this checklist of tasks because, of course, we're not managing the assets for you. So these are the things we are recommending, and we want to make sure that we provide some accountability to know that you're going to get those things done. For the clients where we will also be managing assets in addition to doing the planning, we would have started the onboarding process after the strategy session. And then a lot of our implementation session is talking about investment strategy, right? Getting to the heart of the client's current portfolio, doing that analysis, talking about their risk tolerance, understanding how much risk they can handle, and also setting some expectations around return assumptions. Because one thing that we also believe here at Curo from an investment management philosophy is that we are not chasing the returns of any particular index. We are not chasing the S&P 500. We want to make sure that our clients have a defined personal benchmark, is how we refer to that, that sets a return benchmark based on what they need in order to achieve their goals. And I think it goes also to the heart of why we like planning coupled with the investment management, because it sets expectations so that even when the S&P is really high or down in correction territory, the client feels secure knowing that their investments have been implemented in a way that is chasing only their personal benchmark, right? And only what they need to meet the retirement of goals that we have agreed upon during the session. It's also an implementation where we start to set the plan for our future review meeting schedules, how often they can expect to hear from us. It's also where we may even schedule something to say follow up if you have questions about something you're doing with an account that we don't manage. But that typically sets up our strategy for our relationship going forward as full clients of Curo Private Wealth and not just our newly onboarded clients here starting the planning process.
Yeah, I just want to double click too on the mention of the personal or the family benchmark.
Mhm.
This can be so powerful, and we've experienced this especially during down markets. If we go back to 2022, which was a brutal year in the markets, every asset class was down with the exception of cash and commodities. Everything else was down, including bonds. And having conversations with our clients, our financial planning clients, to say, yes, our portfolios are down this year. Yes, we are losing money, but guess what? You are still on track to reach your financial goals. Instead of, to your point, benchmarking to the S&P 500, which was down double digits that year, let's benchmark to what we've set out as your goals. So, yes, we're going to have down years in the markets. That is to be expected. We can't just go up every time,
Right.
but you are still on track to reach your goals. And that's what we want to focus you on. And that enables people, I believe, to not make rash, emotional, short term decisions, but really to be able to zoom out and say, hey, you know what? This sucks. Like, we're not sugarcoating it. Nobody likes losing money. Nobody likes looking at their statements and seeing their money go down. We get it. However, that doesn't mean we should be making any sort of rash decisions. And I think when you're strictly benchmarking to something like the S&P 500, you're much more likely to make a short-term impulsive emotional decision because that's your one data point
Right.
versus looking at how am I doing? And if I'm still on track to reach my goals and my goals haven't changed, I should not be making any massive changes right now.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think to what you talked about earlier about the probability of success that we review in the strategy session, a lot of that assumes some worst case scenarios in market performance, right? That number that is calculated that gives you that percentage assumes that the market is not going to always be great. And I think that also helps to provide some comfort as well, where a client can say, oh, well, even if we get below average returns out of the market, we're still okay. And that just helps in the relationship
Right.
going forward.
Yeah, and it prevents you from saying something like, "Oh, well, if the market goes down this year, then I'm not going to be able to retire." How many times have you
Right.
heard that? So many times.
Right.
People are like, "Oh yeah, I'll retire this year assuming the market doesn't go down." I'm like, "Wait, well, why would you change your mind just based on what happens in the market? I promise you the market's going to go down at some point in your retirement. So why would you
Right.
push it off?" This is why we stress test the portfolios and make sure we understand that they're still going to be doing well and your plan still works in different market environments. So that's really powerful.
Yeah.
So the next step in our process, about 6 months after our implementation meeting, is the sixth step in our process, which is what we call a check-in call. So this is with either a Teresa, if she's been kind of your main point of contact, or myself, if I've been your main point of contact. And these are great. These are very kind of casual check-ins to say, hey, how has life been the last 6 months? How are things going? Here are the action items we talked about in our last meeting for you to implement. How are those going? And here's a little secret. You're probably not going to have gotten all of them done, and that's okay. That's why we do this check in call to kind of get back on track because we are very aware that life happens and things get crazy and you go back to your crazy lives and not everything is going to get implemented. So this check in call really gets us refocused. It allows us to share too, hey, if we are managing your investments, here's what's going on in the markets. Here are changes we've made in your portfolios if that's applicable. And what do we all really want to focus on for the next 6 months before we come back for our last meeting of this 1 year process, which is our annual review? So those are really just a nice way to kind of get back on track and get back to being focused.
Yeah, and it creates that accountability that I mentioned as well, because Ann and I both really believe that we want to be the financial experts in our clients' life. We want our clients to trust us to a place where they're more than willing to outsource the care and concern of their financial lives to us. But there's only so far we can go without you. So while we can be proactive in reaching out, we always want to make sure we're checking in so that you're getting the things done, always pushing the ball forward, and those check-in calls really help us to sort of check in and create that sense of accountability for our
Exactly. So
so in
last
the
in this
oh,
particular
sorry.
process, go ahead. That's what I was
No,
going to
go
say.
ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, why don't you share the kind of last meeting of this annual process, which is our review, our annual review?
Yeah, of course. So the annual review marks the, I guess, end of our first 12 months of engagement with onboarding a planning client. And usually, what we're doing is, of course, going back, a review of the plan itself and the recommendations, wanting to really confirm that a lot of the recommendations were put into place, or if there was some reason why they couldn't be or have been delayed, that those are all adjusted and reflected appropriately in the plan as well. We'll also go back and reevaluate what changes may have been made. 12 months is a long time, and things that you thought 12 months ago, you may feel differently about now. So we want to also get that update and check in and determine if any of the things that we talked about a year ago are now different for you. It also is a time when we will look at the investments, we'll review the performance, we'll talk about if it's important to reallocate or rebalance, if there are concerns about risk or market performance. We can always discuss and review if any changes are required at that point. And then we also want to make sure that we're checking in with what I like to think of as sort of like our tax planning check in that gives us a chance to see where we are from a tax efficiency standpoint, where we are in capital gains recognition or interest in dividend recognition, and giving our clients sort of an update on what they can expect from a tax perspective as well. So we really treat it like a standard portfolio and plan review, but it's also a great time to really check in and tweak the plan if we need to for any reason because of changes that have happened in our clients' lives.
Absolutely. And just to share the areas that we cover in a comprehensive plan, we've touched on some of them in our conversation, but we do cover 6 key areas in a comprehensive plan. So we start with your current financial position. We look at things like your net worth statement, your cash flow statement, how much discretionary income do you have? If you've got liabilities that we need to work on paying down, what does that look like? We then move over to the risk management category. So this is making sure if something were to happen in your financial position, an unexpected disability, death, long-term care need, how would that impact your financial plan? And how can we maybe mitigate some of those risks in the most cost-effective manner? We then go to wealth accumulation and management. Now, a lot of our clients, we call it draw a bridge between wealth accumulation and management and financial independence because most of them are saving or accumulating for the goal of making work optional. But if you're saving, for example, for your children's college, that would be one of the areas that we talk about in that wealth accumulation, or perhaps it's saving for a second home or a rental property, that kind of thing. We then go into work optional lifestyle, which is another way of saying retirement. In this category, we're talking about not only do you have enough saved, but also to Atrisa's point with taxes, what does the tax diversification look like in your retirement accounts? Is it all pre-tax? Do you have some Roth? When should you take Social Security? If you've got a pension, what kind of pension payout should you take? So really deep dive into all things retirement or work optional lifestyle planning. We then go to tax planning. So we do not prepare tax returns. We
No.
want you to continue to work with your tax professionals. But one of the key distinctions between what we do from a tax planning standpoint and what your accountant or CPA does for you with tax planning is we look at not just how do we save you money on taxes this year, if that's possible, but what do your taxes look like in 5, 10, 20, 30 years out? What does it look like when your children or other beneficiaries inherit your assets if that is going to happen, and what does their tax impact look like? So as your planners from a tax perspective, we are looking extremely long term versus a lot of times CPAs are looking at, okay, what was your tax, what were your tax transactions last year, and let's report them on your tax return, versus we're looking way out into the future. So that's a key distinction there. And then lastly, we talk about wealth preservation and transfer, which is another way of saying estate planning. So we help you decide, do you need a will? Do you need a trust, healthcare directive, powers of attorney, that kind of thing. So we will refer you to a qualified attorney to get those legal documents in place. But a lot of times we can help you decide what documents make sense and should you consider them before you even go sit down with an estate planning attorney. So did I miss anything on the key areas that we cover, Teresa?
No, I think you covered it perfectly. But just, of course, as Anne would say, double click, we don't want to replace the other professionals, the attorneys or the CPAs that you work with, but we do want to coordinate and work in partnership with them because we understand the decisions that we make as a part of your planning and investment management has an effect in other areas. So we always want to be engaged with those other professionals in your life as well.
Very good point. The most successful relationships we have are when we are working together as a team with a client CPA, estate planning attorney, really understanding how our advice impacts those different areas. And we like to call ourselves the quarterback of your financial life
Right.
because we literally can see everything. And so really coordinating together as a team can be very powerful and very beneficial. So thank you for clarifying that, because I probably did not explain that.
No,
So appreciate that.
no, of course. I think the other thing that I just want to highlight about our process in general is our role as Ann would say, as a quarterback, but also as an advisor, right? We don't take that title and that responsibility lightly. We want to make sure that we're always operating in a place where we're helping you move forward to achieve the things and guiding you in moving forward and achieving the things. And one of the biggest parts of that job is also helping you to understand what's important and where you should be focused. And the way we think of it is sort of these spheres of control or lack of control. So there are things in our lives that matter to us, of course, our family, our goals, our visions, it might be charities, those things that are really important. And those are the things that clients are typically investing and saving for because they want to focus on and make better those things that really matter to them. But then in doing that, we have to also accept that there are some things that are within our scope of control or within our sphere of control, and some things that are not. Some of the things that we cannot control is how the market is going to perform. We can't control interest rates. We can't control which part of the economic cycle we're in. Those things we just have no control over. And it's important to not make that the focus of financial decisions because you have no control over what happens in that place. The things that you really want to hone in on the things that you can control. And that is the financial plan, the spending, the saving, the mix of stocks and bonds. Those things we have direct control over. And those are the things where we want to focus in your planning. And usually a large part of our job as your advisor is reminding you of that, right? Is to create that touch point, that reminder that says, hey, don't worry about that. Remember, these are the things that you can't control. We want to stay focused on the things that are within our sphere of control and make sure that those things are set up appropriately and just let, life happens the way it's going to happen. As long as we're doing our best with what we do have control over, then we think that clients are in a good place to move forward and actually achieving the goals that they set.
Absolutely. And the last thing, too, that we talk a lot about is emotional centeredness. So,
Yes.
maintaining our calm and composure as much as we possibly can when the world is going crazy around us. And that's another thing that we do with coaching with clients is coaching is behavioral coaching or emotional coaching when there can be a lot of fear, right? Especially if you think about a time like COVID where the world literally shut down pretty much
Right.
overnight and the markets crashed along with the shutdown. That was really scary. And none of us had had a life experience quite like that. And so it can be, as an investor, it can be very scary to know what should we be doing, right? Should we sell out of
Right.
our portfolio and wait till this craziness passes? Or should we stay the course? And having an advisor, first of all, trying to maintain emotional centeredness as much as possible. We realize it's easier said than done, but also having a sounding board to have those conversations with can be really helpful to bring some context and some history into perspective to really help you make the best decisions possible, not just for what's happening right now, but also for your long-term financial picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And we care about all of it. We really care about our clients, not just about who they are as, numbers or assets on a spreadsheet or on a report. We really become active parts of our clients' lives. We know who their children are and when their children start school. And we are so fully engaged with our clients as people, which I think is really important and which makes us different, I think, too, from some other firms out there.
Yeah. It's why Curo is called Curo. It's to care.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think that wraps our financial planning process. Hopefully, you can tell that it is a very well defined, very
Mhm.
thorough process. We promise to continue to refine it and tweak it as we find opportunities to make it better. We feel like we're never done. We're never
Yeah.
done growing. We're never done improving. So we reserve the right always to try to make it better. But we feel pretty good about it right now. I think it's a pretty
I
solid,
yeah.
solid process.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, exactly. So what closing thought do you have for us today, Atrisa?
My closing thought is very simple today. You're only as old as you feel, and we've already said
Yeah.
it. So that's kind of because of course my recent interaction is what I've been thinking a lot about, and it's not about me or anyone needing to defy aging. I think getting older is such a blessing, right? To age is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the important thing is to try to do it as gracefully as possible, but then to also just embrace that you don't have to be old because the number on the age on the driver's license says that you have to be. So you're only as old as you feel.
Yep. Amen. Absolutely. My closing thought is to, if there's something that you've been wanting to do more of in your life or you haven't had time to do as much, in my life, that would be mindfulness and meditation. My challenge this week to you would be make a commitment to do that thing for 5 minutes every day, just 5 minutes. And I think sometimes I know personally I get overwhelmed with, oh, I have to sit and meditate for 20 minutes for it to like count or for me to get benefit. But what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks is just for 5 minutes coming in before I even get on email or kind of launch my day. I turn my chair around, look outside my pretty window with the trees, and just kind of check in with myself and do some breathing exercises. And even those 5 minutes, which I know I can give myself, everybody's got 5 minutes, has made a really big difference. So that would be my challenge to everyone this week is if there is something that you've been wanting to pick back up or wanting to do or wanting to try, maybe it's reading, you want to read a book more, just take 5 minutes a day and get it done. And, it's better than nothing. And you'll
Yeah.
feel like you are actually working towards a goal that you've set for yourself.
Yeah. Challenge accepted. I'm gonna try that. I'll let you know how it goes next week.
Awesome. Please do. Please report back. All right. So that wraps us for today. Thank you again so much for tuning in to Living Richly with Curo. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give it 5 stars. And if you would like to share a review on your favorite podcast channel or YouTube, we would really appreciate it. We are still a new podcast. So we'd love to hear what you're loving, any ideas or questions. Bring
Absolutely.
questions our way, and we're happy to answer them on the podcast. So thank you again for tuning in.
Until next time.
Take care.